This is the Saber Coach Kate podcast, where I highlight the great thinkers, athletes, and coaches in the dynamic sport of Olympic fencing.
Guard. Boy, howdy.
Dan Kellner started fencing in the 7th grade. He had a video game called Summer Games and had trouble playing the fencing part. He asked his mom about the sport so much that eventually she took him to his first coach, Ted Lee. Ted was the Olympic Armourer at the time and would expose Dan to his first taste of attaining a shot at Olympic gold. Later, Dan became Simon Gershon's student, where Coach Lee was instrumental in teaching and perfecting Dan's foil technique. Coach Gershon led him through the tactics of the game. The work of both coaches would lead to many successes in fencing: silver at the national championships in 1997, 1998, and 2000. With such a phenomenal trajectory in the works, Dan instead hit rock bottom in 2000. He missed qualifying for the Olympic team that year and took it really hard. It was a challenging time for him both mentally and physically. He gained weight from the lack of activity and was in a funk. A year to the day he walked out of his fencing club for what he thought would be for the last time, he went back to Coach Gershon and started training again. 2 years later, in 2003, Dan won gold at the Pan American Games. He earned the national championship title in 2004 and made the Olympic team that same year. He retired from competitive fencing in 2006 and is now the owner and head coach of the Brooklyn Bridge Fencing Club. Listen to the incredible story of how Dan Kellner turned his fencing career from smoldering ashes to fiery victory. He suffered the greatest of defeats, not reaching his ultimate goal of competing in the Olympic Games, and found the strength within himself to try again. What an inspiration. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Saber Coach Kate podcast. My guest this evening is Dan Kellner. Dan, hi.
Hi, how you doing? It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
It was really cool to be at the Coaches Academy and watch you give a lesson to your student, Sam Molis. That just really inspired me to pick your brain a little bit about how you became a fencer and some questions about your coaching technique and how you build your club culture. So, you ready to get to it?
I'm ready to get to it. Let's get started.
All right, excellent. Well, first of all, how did you even become a fencer?
This is a story I've told many times, and I think it's a great one, especially when parents complain that their kids play too many video games. I actually got into fencing because of a video game for my Commodore 64 computer when I was 13 years old called Summer Games 89.
Oh, awesome.
It had all the sports of the Summer Olympics on it, including fencing. But I was awful at the game. I couldn't make it work well. But fencing just intrigued me, so I asked my mother about it, and she said, I don't know anything about it. They've got it at your high school. Go see the coach. And the coach ended up being U.S. Fencing Hall of Famer Ted Lee.
Oh, awesome.
And even though I was only 13 at the time, he was nice enough to let me attend the high school team preseason practice, and I just fell in love with it there. And after that, it was a snowball rolling down a hill. And then by the time I fenced when I was in middle school, it was just intramural. There was no other teams to fence. We just had practice and we battled against ourselves. I don't think I even fenced electric. And then when I was 15, turning 16, my coach, Simon Gershon, had come into the country from the former Soviet Union. And because Ted Lee was plugged into the national fencing scene, he had heard that Simon was a great coach and a guy to go see, and he knew I had passion and talent, so he sent me into New York City to start taking lessons with Simon, and he was my coach for my entire fencing career.
Wow. What weapon did you fence?
I fenced foil pretty much exclusively. I never competed in anything else.
Okay. Did you try the other two?
Not really. I was introduced to foil in middle school, and it just appealed to me. The strategy, the rules, counterattacking, flicking was kind of new at the time. So
One of those, huh?
doing that. And I remember friends on the middle school team who couldn't wait to get to high school to be able to switch to epee or saber. And I was like, no way, foil's for me, man. That was it.
Wow. Well, tell me about your fencing career. You started pretty early, middle school. So I know you've accomplished a lot, but give us a brief overview.
I picked up a foil for the first time in middle school, but I didn't really start taking lessons until I was almost 16 years old. And that's really when I sort of start like the beginning of my career, because before that it was just kind of messing around for 2 months out of the year in school. It wasn't really training. So I started taking lessons 15, turning 16. I only got to fence 1 year as a cadet on the cadet national circuit. Cadets didn't go to Europe at that time, but amazingly enough, I ended up fourth in the point standings.
Oh, wow.
And then I made a junior team in 1996. That was my last year as a junior. I was on the junior team. And then 1997 was my first year as a senior, and I was on the senior world team from 97 until 2006 when I stopped fencing.
Wow.
So it was I had a great career. My career ended due to injury. I think I qualified for the 2006 World Championship team, but I didn't fence because I was injured, and injury ended my career.
Yeah.
But I really have no complaints.
Yeah. In all of that, what do you consider your greatest fencing accomplishment?
I think there are two. I think, and they're pretty much tied. Just in no particular order, cracking the top 16 in the world. The senior rankings. I think I was only the second U.S. male foil fencer to ever do that. Cliff Baird did it before me, but I don't think there was anybody else before Cliff.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure I was the second U.S. male foil fencer to crack the top 16 in the world. And then coming in fourth in the team event in the 2004 Olympic Games. I know our 2016 team just eclipsed that, but I guess up until then we had the highest team result in 56 years. And so that was pretty special, considering we were ranked 7th going into the games, and we upset number 2 Germany.
Wow.
To make the top 4.
Wow. And who were some of your notable teammates?
Olympians Cliff Baird, Peter Devine, Zadok Longenbach, and then John Tiomkin, Jed Dupre, and Greg Chang.
Okay. Yeah, those are some big names. Yeah. I'm a saber fencer, but you and I know that.
I got to span almost pretty much 2 generations of foil fencers, from the old timings through the new ones.
Wow. Now, you said that you stopped fencing in 2006 because of your injury, but actually you stopped for a year before that.
That is true. In 2000, I did not qualify for the Olympic Games. Back then, the qualification system was different. The Team World Cups didn't count in terms of team ranking to help a team qualify, and the zones weren't as clearly defined by the FIE. So in 1998, the men's foil team had made the top 8 at World Championships, and I think it was the first time ever in the modern era that the men's foil team had made the top 8. And what the FIE said the next year, in 1999, that the 8 teams going to the Olympics would be the top 8 teams at World Championships. It was do or die. You made the top 8. You made the top 8 at World Championships, and you were qualified for the Olympics. And unfortunately, we did not qualify. We lost in the round of 16, and then my international individual results were not good enough to qualify. So once I realized that I wasn't going to go to the Olympics, I told my coach Simon that I was going to quit fencing and stop. I had been on the previous 3 World Championship teams, and I thought that just qualifying for the Olympics would be the next logical step, and I would be able to do what I did and hold down a full-time job and train for the Olympics and qualify, and everything would go according to plan. Unfortunately, I learned the hard way that the training for the Olympics and qualifying for the Olympics is a whole other animal.
It sounds like it, yeah.
And just I can honestly say now, I look back at like that year when I quit, I was really, for a while, I was really depressed and like not happy.
I'm sure.
But, yeah.
To not reach that goal that you'd really been striving for and training hard for, that would be really difficult.
And it's funny, like when I talk about when I first started taking lessons, I remember like where I was, like outside my high school, like waiting to go home, and I realized that I want to be on an Olympic team one day. And at 15 years old, I really had no idea what that entailed, but I just knew I wanted to do it. I know that was going to be a goal for me. And then in 2000 to come so close and just fall short, it was really devastating for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't even imagine. But a year after that, you started fencing again.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it turned out to be, I think I looked back on it, and I think it turned out to be a year to the day that we had fenced the team event.
No kidding.
In Seoul, Korea in 1999. So like a year later in 2000, it was after the Olympics. I think it was a year to the day. I walked back into the fencing club and told Simon I wanted to start training again. And I had been like thinking about fencing in the back of my mind. And I remember a story an ex-girlfriend had told me that we were just walking across the street in New York City, and all of a sudden I made some motion with my hand, and I guess I was just kind of lost in my thoughts. And she said, "What was that? What did you just do?" And I was like, "I didn't do anything." And then she showed me the motion that I did, and literally I just made like a parry 4 repost in the air. So I guess like I like fencing was like in the back of my mind percolating. So I guess once I kind of realized that there was a job left unfinished, I walked back into the fencing club and told Simon I wanted to start training again. I started training slowly. I was just taking lessons. I had to get back in shape. In my year off, I had like started smoking.
Oh no!
Gained a lot of weight. So I had to kind of cut back on the weight, and I would just take lessons. I would fence with younger kids and people that I knew I could beat. And then one day somebody like of my level asked me to fence, and I was had a little trepidation, but we fenced, and I remember beating him in practice, and I was like, okay, I can still fence.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like the training kind of kicked into gear after that. And I remember going into like the first NAC in a while, and I was unranked. I think it was like 128th, and then I got third, and all of a sudden my ranking jumped up to like 28th, and then I was like, well, I guess you have to go to the next one. So I went to the next one, and I got third again. And it's like, well, now you're third in the country. It's like you're back on the national team. And I was like, okay.
Okay,
so
after
like,
two tournaments.
It's like, okay, now you got to start going to World Cups again.
Here we go again.
And I remember the first World Cup I went to, they lost my bag. My bag never showed up. But I remember like not being that I didn't. I think I went. I didn't even. My bag didn't show up. I didn't even fence the individual event. I was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me that much because I was. But like, I scrounged enough stuff together to fence the team event. Because Simon's like, you have. I don't care if you don't fence the individual, but we brought you here. You're fencing the team event.
Yeah.
So, but that was the mindset I was still in, and I just kind of eased back into it, and I'm glad I did.
Well, and what was Simon's reaction when you walked in that first day?
I think he had a big smile on his face.
Okay.
I don't think I called him. I think I don't think I told anybody. I think I literally just like walked back into the club and said hi.
Was it like an impulse thing, or had you kind of thought about it?
Like I said, I think I'd been thinking about it, but I really think it was just a total coincidence that I walked back in a year to the day. But I definitely been thinking. I think I felt like I had to like work up the courage to go back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big risk.
Yeah, because there's plenty of people who quit and come back, and they're not as good as they were. And Simon had told me that it was very rare for someone to quit for a year, come back, and then be better than they were when they quit.
Yeah.
So I was very happy about that.
After having to give up smoking and all of that as well. Well, let's talk about a semifinal bout that you did in 2004 against Jed Dupree. It was during the national championships, and you were behind, and you rallied twice and got the final touch after it was tied at 14 all. What kind of mental preparation did you have to do in order to accomplish something like that?
I remember definitely being down 7-1 in the beginning, 6-1 or 7-1 in the beginning. And I remember making a comeback. Was I down 14-13 or something toward the end? I don't remember.
Yeah, like you had been behind.
Yeah, I know I was behind. Well, so to give you a little backstory, I think it was like 90, I want to say like either like 97, 98, 99 or 98, 99, 2000. For 3 years in a row, I got second place. I got the silver medal at Div 1 Nationals.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like, I'm not going to this tournament anymore. I hate this tournament. And because I was always already qualified for the world team. And I was just, but in 2004, I made the Olympic team. They were doing the team announcement at Nationals. My mom had flown down to Atlanta to see me fence and to like be with the other parents and enjoy the announcement. And I distinctly remember being down 7-1 in the finals and looking at my mom and being like, I don't want to come in second again, and I don't want to come in second with my mom watching.
Right.
So
people to be watching,
I was like, I bet, and my mom hadn't seen me fence in anything significant in a really long time. My parents had come to college meets, but they didn't really travel to like USFA or international stuff. So I was like, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of the crowd and in front of my mom. And it was against my teammate, and we'd fenced a million times. So I just kind of had to dig deep and adjust my strategy and figure out what he was doing and just do what I had to do to win the battle. I didn't really think about it as mental preparation, more about it's like I just don't want to be embarrassed.
You know, whatever it takes to motivate an athlete.
Yeah, I wanted it. I know it, like winning a national championship is not as important as it once was, and even when I fenced. But I didn't want to retire without winning a national championship at least once. So I'm glad I got to win it.
Well, especially having gotten there so close a couple of other times, then it's like, it's right there.
Yeah.
Well, and you did something similar during the gold medal team match during the 2003 Pan American Games. The team was behind 30-40, and you finished the match 45-44. So there's really something about you that makes you a good team closer and that puts you in the zone at the appropriate moment. How do you accomplish that? What traits do you have that give you that?
I just think mental toughness, and I know that's kind of a nebulous term, but just always think that I can win and figure out a way to win no matter who we're fencing. So like for that particular bout, a few days earlier, I had won the Pan Am individual title, and I fenced the Cuban closer in the bronze medal bout in one of the semifinals, and I beat him 15-6. So I knew, yes, 10 touches was down a lot, but I only had to, I beat him 15-6. All I had to do was beat him 15-4 this time.
Right.
And it wasn't, and I was like, okay, it's close enough. And the thing is, I think he got the first touch.
Uh-oh.
And it went up 41-30. And when you fence in the Pan American Games, basically the U.S. has Canada on its side, and everybody else who is cheering for the country that's not the U.S.
Right. Is it still that way?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure, yeah. So, but then I just remembered just time slowing down and just seeing things, and then all of a sudden I looked at this, and then all of a sudden I was up. I want to say I was up by like 2 or 3 touches, and then once I realized I was up, I fell out of the zone.
Oh no.
And then we battled to 44-44, and I remember the last touch, and the director saying ready fence, and we're both come off the line, and he stops and looks for a parry, and I just disengage around and finish and look back at the lights and see both lights on.
Oh no.
And raise my hands up, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I remember, and his name is Raul Perojo, is my friend. I've known him for a long time, but I just remember him being just sitting on the strip and just unfortunately being crushed and not being able to and it took him a long time to shake my hand, not out of any rudeness or a bad sport, but I just knew he was so devastated that it just took him a long time to come around. But that was great. And the other reason I knew I could do it is because I had come back from a 9-touch deficit in another team. I'd come back from stuff between I don't think it ever as many as 10, but 6, 7, and 8. Mm-hmm. I had done it before. I knew there was one early in my comeback. I wasn't sure about closing, and I let somebody else close, and I fenced really well in the 8th match, and we were up. But then the fencer who closed in the 9th match kind of gave it up, and I decided I'm going to take responsibility for the rest of my career. As long as I can still fence on the team, I'm going to take responsibility, win or lose, for closing. And I lost bouts, but I was going to be the one that took the responsibility for it and put it on my shoulders in the last match. And hopefully it came out better than worse most of the time.
Now, we've talked about some really great wins that you've had. But you just said, you haven't won every match. What was your biggest defeat?
I didn't win. Yeah, I didn't win every match. I didn't win every match. I think probably coming in 4th at the Olympics in 2004 has to be up there. Mm-hmm. That was really terrible. To come so close to a medal and then fail. Yeah. That took a long time to get over. I thought coming in 2nd was probably not making the top 8 at the Olympics, but I didn't realize how big a deal that was until many months later. Mm-hmm. But at the time, coming in 4th just felt awful.
Yeah. How did you come back from that?
Well, had the support of my coach and teammates. The other thing, unfortunately, it turned out to be untrue, but I thought at the time that we would be back in 4 years. And that was something well, don't worry, we'll do it, we'll get it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that turned out to not be true, but that helped. Historical perspective on what we had accomplished, even though we had gotten fourth. That helped. And the thing about that team is, like, unlike the team now is amazing with all the guys ranked in the top 16. They're really strong. They're amazing. But we were a team that was better than the sum of our parts and, like, really overachieved. And I think that in itself was really special.
Yeah. It sounds like you had a really good chemistry.
Yeah, we did. We trained all the time. We had the same coach. We trained 5-6 days a week together, traveled together. We saw each other all the time.
You've talked about your coaches. Tell me just a little bit more about them. And tell me about the other people who had an impact on your fencing.
I'd say the two people who had the biggest impact on my fencing were Ted Lee and then Simon Gershon. And the reason I say Ted Lee is because he was my introduction to the sport, and he was the person that led me to Simon Gershon. I wouldn't have known about Simon without Ted. And then Simon was my coach for my career. He made me as a fencer. He was a great coach in the Ukraine and the Soviet Union. He was co-head coach of the Soviet Union's women's foil team, and he had an individual foil champion. They had a team world championship. So when he came to America, he had to prove himself all over again. And I think I was definitely his first student in the country. I think I was the second lesson he ever gave in the country. And just he worked so hard with me to make sure that I could fence. And I owe him everything, honestly. And then I'm very grateful to my parents who were able to support me through my fencing career as long as they did. I think those people are really the people who made me as a fencer.
Yeah, you're rock. Yeah. What were you like as a fencer? In terms of style, I'd say I was 60-40 defense over offense, maybe even 70-30. Okay. Being left-handed, I really liked counterattacking, attacking preparations, stuff like that, tricking your opponent, making them miss. I could attack when I needed to, but I was much happier to bait people into attacking me and then try to make them look stupid with something. But I wasn't really a showboat or anything. I was known as a hard worker. I always thought I was a guy that, and I had this conversation with Keith Smart, and I think Keith Smart is much more athletically talented than I ever was, but we both had the same mindset where we're just guys that showed up to practice every day. It didn't matter what the weather was. It didn't matter how we felt. It didn't matter what else was going on. It was just you went to practice. Yeah.
And like I used to go to practice on my birthday, and people would say, "Dan, it's your birthday." So I was a guy that was known as a hard worker, and it would be my birthday, and I would show up to fencing practice, and people would say, "Dan, why are you here? It's your birthday." And it's like, well, it's my birthday. I get to do whatever I want, and I want to fence because that's just what I love to do. I think I was known maybe more of a hard worker than as a talented fencer, because I really was not that talented or a natural athlete. I had to turn myself into an athlete to get myself to the next level of fencing. But I guess I had to have some talent for the game to get me as far as I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just showing up isn't going to do it if you're not actually using your time wisely.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of, you've got to show up, you've got to work hard, you've got to have whatever that nebulous thing they call talent is. You've got to have a support system, and you've got to have a great coach. there's a lot of people that have 2 or 3, but very few that have all of it. And I think I was just very, very lucky to have all of it.
What's the best advice you ever received as a fencer?
That is a great question. I think the best advice I ever received as a fencer, again, would come from my coach, Simon, and it was to have a good finish, you need a good start. And it's just in terms of like your actions, but it sort of applies to life as well. It's like if you can just control what you're doing at the start, you'll be able to adjust along the way. If you're just kind of always rushing headlong into things, you never know what's coming.
You know, that's such a coach thing to say, because you can take it just at the surface level, and then you realize there are all these different layers.
Yeah.
It's like a Mr. Miyagi moment or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. Now, you stopped fencing in 2006, and then you decided to become a coach. What was it that made you decide to transition to coaching?
Well, it wasn't right away. I had spent about 2 years on my couch, kind of doing nothing, recuperating from my injuries. And by that time, my wife and I had gotten married and moved to Brooklyn. And by the time I was healed up enough, my wife had found there was a small fencing club like 2 or 3 blocks from where we were living.
How handy.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I kind of wandered in there. I just fenced for a little bit, and then just to see if I could still do it, and literally just to have fun, I wasn't looking to make a third comeback or second comeback. I wasn't looking to come back again, but just to have fun, see if I could get back in shape, just be a little healthier. And then one of the coaches there decided they didn't want to coach anymore. So I asked the owner if I could take over his students and classes. And so that's where the beginning of my coaching career came from. And when I decided a few years later, when I decided to open my own club, I realized that like I was doing this because I love the sport of fencing. It had given me so much that I had gone a little insane without being involved in it, and that I had a responsibility. I felt I had a responsibility to give back, and that the men's foil program had come so far, but we proved that we could be successful at the highest level, and it seemed to me to be a waste to stop and not carry that forward, because I know a lot of fencers are very, very smart people. They go to great schools. I went to Columbia, and they are very, very successful in whatever business or endeavor they choose. But I felt like I needed to give back somehow, and I just started coaching. Even when I opened my own club, it was part-time, and I was still working my other job until my club got big enough where I could just coach full-time.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that a fabulous thing when that happens?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I get to do what I love, even though it can be frustrating. It's so rewarding, and I know there are people that hate their job, and I'm just so grateful that I get to do what I love.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can keep going.
I was going to say that's how David and I feel about what we do too, because very few people get to spend every moment of the day doing what they love.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Well, okay, there's accounting. That's not fun.
Well, yeah, but I made that. That was a hard part, but I figured out how to make that a little easier.
Oh, that's good. Maybe we'll have to chat about that later.
Yeah.
QuickBooks is not my friend. What is your coaching philosophy?
That's another great question. I really want fencing to be fun, but I want people. I want people to learn a great sport they can do for the rest of their life. And whether you want to come to the club and just make your high school team and be a recreational fencer, that's great too. And if you want to come to the club and be number one in the world, you can do that as well. Mm-hmm. So it's you're gonna get out of this what you put into it, and the Brooklyn Bridge Fencing Club will be there to support you in that as long as you're a foil fencer.
Okay.
I stick to what I know.
Yeah, it's probably a better idea.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy most about coaching?
I love watching an athlete grow and develop and learn the actions that they've been taught. I love to see them grow as a person. It's really just the most amazing thing to see the development of a person through the sport we love.
Mm-hmm. All those intangibles that only sport can provide.
Yeah.
And what do you like least about coaching?
The accounting. No, I really thought when I opened a club, I teach some lessons, teach some classes, but there's just so much administrative stuff that also goes into it that I really don't like.
I know, right?
In terms of just, but the straight up coaching part, the thing I hate most is like wrangling little kids. To the class. It's like herding cats. Yeah. And I know they want to have fun. I know they want to be there, but it's like, I want to teach you something, and I don't want this to be expensive babysitting for your parents.
Right. Mm-hmm. What are you most proud of in your coaching career?
I think Sam Molis winning the Cadet World Championships, Rayson Bowden winning the overall Men's Fall World Cup, and Owen Groningsater just developing from an uncoordinated, argumentative 10-year-old into a national medalist who got to travel to Junior World Cups, just to see his development to be with him from age, I want to say like 8. I think I had him somewhere between 8 and 10 till 18 till he left for college. I think that was one of the most amazing journeys to take.
That's what's so great about our sport, because we get people for a long period of time.
Yeah, we're lucky enough to get them to. Hopefully you do.
Yeah, and that just is a really special bond that you create with them. Is there anything you wish you could change about your coaching career?
I wish I had started earlier. I was very sore. I was very kind of angry at fencing when I got injured. Like, why did this happen to me? And I couldn't watch the 2008 Olympics. I was just like, I should have been there. Yeah. But I wish once I had recovered from my injuries, I had just kind of taken the leap into coaching earlier. That's about it.
Well, it sounds like you needed time to heal, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And maybe if you'd become a coach at that time, it wouldn't have worked out as well.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. Who knows?
You've talked about your club several times, the Brooklyn Bridge Fencing Club. Why did you decide to open your own place?
There's a really strong self-employed streak in my family. And after working for somebody else and seeing what that person did, I was like, I can do this better. Mm-hmm. And I want to do things my own way, for better or worse. I want to do things my own way. And I just wanted to put my stamp on fencing. And I thought that was the best way to do it.
Yeah, because your club is either going to make or break based entirely on you. So yeah. Tell me more about your club. Like, how many members do you have? How many strips do you have? Where is it?
The Brooklyn Bridge Fencing Club is in Dumbo, Brooklyn. It's a great neighborhood. Dumbo means down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass.
That's what that means. I was wondering when I went to the World Cup.
And it's the section of Brooklyn, literally just south of Manhattan. We're the first stop in Brooklyn on the subway, and we're right. If you look out the window of the club, you'll see the Manhattan Bridge, not the Brooklyn Bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge is down the block, but I called the club Brooklyn Bridge Fencing because I think if I called it Manhattan Bridge Fencing, people would think the club was in Manhattan, and it wouldn't be very good for SEO results. So, and right now, I started the club just over about 7 years ago. I opened it in September of 2010, so almost 7 years old. And back then, it was just me. 4 strips and 13 fencers.
Wow.
As of right now, we doubled in size. We have 8 strips, and we had 150 fencers last year.
Wow.
And I'm actually doing construction right now, and we're hopefully by September 1st, if all goes well, we'll have another 4 strips. So we're gonna expand we're currently expanding to 12 strips. So I'm very happy about that.
That's really fabulous.
Thank you.
Wow, congratulations. I mean, that expansion, that's a lot of space.
And now we have also, and it's not just, luckily, because I can't handle everybody, it's not just me anymore. I have 3 other coaches. I have a great coaching staff, Henry Kennard, Jose Zamora, and Mitro Valsamis. So we all work together and get a lot of great results.
That's really great. What do you look for in the coaches that you hire?
I'm looking for people who have a solid grasp of fencing, who have something in common with the way I teach and are open to learning the way I would like fencers to fence at the club. That way we can all speak the same fencing language and work with all the fencers equally.
Okay. And what kind of club culture have you tried to create at your place?
I think I tried to create a culture that is relaxed and fun. Everybody is there to have a good time, but everybody is there to work hard and get the work done and become a successful fencer.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, thanks so much for sharing all of that information about your fencing career and your club. That'll be the end of the first part of our interview.
No problem. My pleasure.
And we will finish up with the hardest part of the interview. It's a mixture of famous questions from James Lipton, who used them on his program Inside the Actors Studio, and Marcel Proust, who is, I'm not going to say he's a favorite of mine, but I spent a couple of years in France, so I got to know his work pretty well. So, you ready for these?
Sure.
All right. What is your favorite word?
I'm going to go with a word that most people do not like, but it's become kind of a joke word at the club, and it's moist.
Oh, no. I was hoping you weren't going to say that. That's one of those words that I just can't stand hearing.
We have a running joke at the club about that word, so I'm going to go with that one for now.
Okay.
I know people hate it, but I find it hilarious.
Yeah, like David. He'll try and, just get my goat and he'll say it. Just because he knows it makes me shudder. Well, then, what's your least favorite word?
Ungrateful. I hate that word.
What sound or noise do you love?
My son Jonah's laugh.
Is that who I heard in the background a little bit ago?
I think so, yep.
And what sound or noise do you hate?
There's a tie here. My daughter's crying because she can be very manipulative about using it to get what she wants, and I'm the one that always falls for it. Or I can't stand the incessant beep of off-target lights when the machine is left on foil and no one's hooked up. I know I should get used to this because I'm surrounded by it all the time, but my brain just can't tune out that sound. And I talked to my other coaches about it, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't hear it." And I'm like, it just bugs me to no end.
Yeah, it must be at just the right frequency to...
And I'm just like, when somebody gets off a ship, I'm like, just set it to épée. You don't have to turn off the machine, just set it to épée.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I'd like to be an illustrator. My first love was illustration and art. I actually worked at Marvel Comics when I was in college. and a little while afterwards. And I thought I made a choice in high school to choose either Columbia or to go to Pratt for illustration. I chose Columbia and fencing. But if I had to do it all over again, I think I'd make the same choice. But if I couldn't be a fencing coach, I'd want to be some sort of illustrator.
Wow. What was your role at Marvel?
I was an intern and then a freelancer in the licensing and marketing department.
Huh. And what profession would you not like to do?
Any job that requires anything more formal than jeans and a t-shirt.
Amen, brother. Where would you like to live?
If there was a Brooklyn that was always warm and sunny, I'd live there. But I'm really happy in Brooklyn. I can't stand the weather.
Yeah, it gets a little miserable there in the winter.
Yeah.
What do you value most in your friends?
I'd have to go with honesty.
Who is your hero?
I don't have one. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, but I don't have one. I think idealizing someone is a great way to be let down by them. I really couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah. And what is your motto?
I've got two. The first one is words have meaning. And the second one is point first, start slow, finish fast.
The logo of your club has those things on there too.
Yep.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time tonight and for all of your insight.
You are very welcome. I was very happy to do it. It was a great interview. Thank you.
It's been really fun to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Big thanks once again to Tony Escueda, my friend who does all of the editing and the music for this podcast. Thanks as well to my great husband, David Sierra, who is always very supportive of this project and helps me come up with ideas for my next interviews. He also is the person who created the logo. Thank you as well to Cutting Edge Fencing Center, my sponsor, who has allowed me to purchase Saber Coach Kate podcast swag, the stickers, the pins, and the patches that you might have seen around at different tournaments. Thank you as well to everybody out there who listens regularly, or to those of you that are just joining me in this journey. This is a really great project that I'm really proud of, and it's been so fabulous to be able to talk to all of these different people who are involved in our sport. I'd like to thank all of them as well for giving up their time, and to all my future interviewees. I know you're out there. Please get in touch with me if you'd like me to interview you, or if you know of someone that you'd like to hear more about. You can get in touch with me at sabercoachkate@gmail.com. You can also visit my blog, sabercoachkate.wordpress.com, for articles about the sport of fencing, my feelings about different aspects of our sport, as well as links to each one of these podcast episodes.